Record to this. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Your Next Business Bestie. This week, I'm welcoming my friend Karie to the show. Hi, Karie. How are you?
I am wonderful. How are you today?
Good. So, Karie and I met through a networking group up in the Tri Lakes area. And this is actually my first podcast recording in my new office. I have never had an
With
office, Karie.
I'm
Yeah,
so excited for you. It's
it's
important to have a dedicated space.
yes. And getting that dedicated space where there's a door is even better. It's funny because everyone assumed that I meant so that I could shut the world and pets. For those of you listening, I have a my cat, laying in my arms right now because she was incessant. But it's really so that I can close my door on work and walk away from it. Because when my desk was in our living space or in our bedroom, I just kept working and working and working because that's what we do. But Karie, why don't you tell everybody what it is that you do?
Well, I am a real estate agent in the Colorado Springs and Monument areas. I am kind of like a dinosaur because I worked in the mortgage industry for years and years before this. I did like mortgage fraud investigations from the last crash and then transitioned over to the sell side of real estate 6.5 years ago. So there's really nothing that I haven't seen in the real estate industry that surprises me anymore.
That's incredible. I think I knew that, but I had forgotten that about your story. And Karen
Yes.
and I really started to bond immediately because I worked in a mortgage office for 5 years, but also our love for social media and strategy and all of that. But so let's back up. How did you start into the mortgage world, and how long ago was that, and how'd you end up
Oh
there?
my gosh. I think that was about 14 years ago. I actually started in mortgage fraud investigations. So I did not have real estate experience. I found, the market had really like hit a high and then started to tank after like 2005.
Yeah.
So I worked for a company that worked on behalf of the mortgage insurance companies. And so what would happen is when somebody defaulted on their mortgage, the mortgage insurance company would get a claim that, hey, there's either a short sale in progress or maybe a foreclosure. And so we would get this giant file of all that paperwork and re-underwrite the entire file, re-verify employment for people, review their taxes again to determine if that loan should have been made or not made in the first place. And during that time, at least a lot of the files that we were getting, they should not have been made in the first place. So it was one of my favorite jobs. It really played into like my analytical side and getting to talk to people and hear their side of the story of, how this loan was made and what documents were or were not required. And the biggest difference then was just that stated income loans were a thing. So one of my favorite ones that I ever saw was sandwich artist, $100,000 a year in 2005. And I
Oh,
kind of thought like, oh, maybe they're like Subway corporate, right? But no, they worked at a Subway and their stated documentation for the loan application said they made $100,000 a year. So I mean, it was just interesting to go back and review these. And obviously, the mortgage industry has made great strides in verifying, re-verifying information. It's way harder to get a mortgage now, but it will go down as one of my favorite jobs for sure.
that's really cool. It's fascinating to me because, in 2008 when the crash happened, I was in college. So I
Hmm.
wasn't paying attention to what was going on in the world. I was in college, right? So working
Yeah.
in a mortgage office, I learned so much, like watching the Big Short movie and all of I learned so much about the fraud in the world of mortgages. And it's crazy to me, the stuff that happened in that time period. So we're talking like 2010-ish, 2011 that you were working in that.
I think I started like 2008, and then
Right.
that business had a lifespan, obviously, because once you'd really reviewed the most of the stated income loans, those started to phase out. So that's when I transitioned to like corporate underwriting and QA underwriting. So I had to like review underwriters and determine if they should have made the decisions that they made. And then somehow I landed here when I never wanted to be a real estate agent.
You know, a lot of the best real estate agents I know say that they never wanted to be a
Yeah,
real estate agent. So how did that transition happen? How did you land in being a real estate agent?
yeah. I had my second daughter, and so I was working some pretty demanding hours without a lot of flexibility. My
Mhm.
husband's job is very demanding. So there was a time where I was like, maybe I need to like explore something else.
Yeah.
And I took over like a marketing position for a top producing realtor who's amazing. And kind of just migrated in that way. My husband was one day was like, you should get your real estate license. And I actually like cried. I was like, I don't want to get my real estate license. I don't want to run around with my hair on fire. I don't want to have no life and only work. And but I accepted challenge, so I got licensed in like record time. Like 3 weeks later, I had my real estate license, and then immediately I had this community of people that were like, Karie, we only want to work with you, and they were amazing to trust me with the level of transactions that they were doing at that time, and it just continued to grow and evolve. So that's how I'm here.
When was that? How long ago?
That was, gosh, right before COVID hit. So talk about it was
Yeah.
2019, I believe. So mid 2019, I got my license, had a pretty good start to 2019, and then the world shut down in 2020.
Wow.
And I had to find new ways. I mean, we worked. Real estate was deemed essential. So we were out there with gloves and masks on.
It was insane. Like, and I started in the mortgage office in 2019, so mid 2019. So when you were making
Okay,
the shift into real estate, and I was still really just learning about it, but the insanity in 2020 of you guys were essential, then you weren't essential, and then how you could show homes and what had to be, it was crazy.
it
But
really
it's
was.
incredibly busy too. And like on the mortgage side, refinances were absolutely unreal at that point because interest rates were so low. So the community that you had when you started off as a real estate agent, where did those people come from? How are they already connected to you?
Yeah, it was largely my sphere of influence. So it was a lot of like the community that we had created through my kids' sports activities and that sort of thing. And I mean, it immediately, like I have one client that bought and sold 7 houses with me in my first 2 years of real estate, and then continues to buy real estate in different areas and is like, Karie, I don't trust anybody else but you, so I need you to get your license in Florida. And I'm like, well, I can't get my license in Florida or, Belize, but I can't help you with anything in Colorado. And so that was, um, I mean, I really feel like that is a big contribution to the success that I have is just the community that we had that trusted me with their largest asset, which is such a compliment.
Yeah, I mean, it's often the biggest transaction of people's lives that they are trusting with you. And I've done a
And the
lot.
most trust.
Yeah, and I've done a lot of work with real estate agents because I coach real estate agents and loan officers. And that's the message that we really try to get across, especially to newbies in the industry, is like this is a really, really big deal. And I don't care if I don't know if you can find a $150,000 house anywhere at this point, maybe in the South, but I don't care if it's 150 or $2 million dollars. It's still just as significant in people's lives. And um
Yes.
it's an interesting industry. I have a direct sales background, and I have found a lot of similarities between the two that people will often get into those industries and think they're going to get rich quick. And they underestimate the amount of work it is. And it's people like you.
Yes.
I'll do a shout out to Tracy Halsey. She's up in the Arvada area. She's another one of my favorite real estate agents. Like it's people like you that like you do it right. So let's talk about because we were saying before we recorded, there's less real estate agents than there were in 2020 for sure. But there's still a lot. There's a lot of quote unquote competition out there. I don't love that word. But what makes working with you different than working with anyone else?
Gosh, it's hard. I definitely feel like we are in a state where you cannot sneeze without particles hitting a real estate agent. um, there are so many licensed agents in Colorado. And so for me, I think, I didn't come from a background of real estate where like my dad was a developer or my mom retired and handed me a book of business. So when I got into real estate, I really had to work to create a name for myself, get those reviews of how hard I worked on a transaction. And I still think to this day, that's what sets me apart is that I really care. I like
Yeah.
care about every single detail in the transaction and the people's success. So for me, it's not about numbers. It's about the relationships that I build with people and helping them achieve success. That's so rewarding to me. I mean, look, there's things in real estate that happen that we cannot control. So that it's a bumpy road sometimes. And I always tell everyone, I'm just going to do my best to help smooth those bumps where we can. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and it sometimes is a thankless job too, because it's like if I'm taking care of stuff behind the scenes, my job is to like calm the noise for you, which means you may not even know that I've put out 4 fires for you, and so you're like, gosh, this is a really smooth transaction. Well, I saw something coming and fixed it before it really blew up. So
Yeah.
I definitely think that that is something, and a lot of my clients tell me they're very busy professionals. They need to work as uninterrupted as possible while selling or buying their biggest asset. And so they expect me to handle their transaction with the utmost professionalism. And that's exactly what I do.
I love that.
Yeah.
What about managing expectations? You touched on this a little bit. And we talked about how I have friends that are trying to sell a house right now, and it's crazy because, 2020 days, 2021. I mean, I will never, the last round of me trying to buy a house was, well, I guess it was the second to last round, 2021. So we we're still very much in COVID. And I had COVID in April of 21. And I remember I put an offer on a condo with only seeing it on Zoom. Like my agent
Oh,
called me on Zoom because I was too sick to leave. I knew that it was going to move fast. And long story short, it turned out the HOA wouldn't allow my dogs. And I ended up doing the digging to find that out. They presented to me, you'll get a kick out of this, Carrie. They gave me HOA docs that were labeled from 1982.
oh
And
no.
yeah, having worked in the industry, I was like, mm, this does not seem right. This is Colorado, like there's updates. So I remember I reached out to my realtor and he was like, well, that's what they gave you, so that's what we have to go. We can go off from. I was like, I'm not buying something for $300,000. It was a condo, with the chance of getting there and finding out that my dogs are against HOA rules. So luckily, I am tenacious, and I reached out and I dug down and I found the updated HOA docs, and sure enough, it was so funny. There was no pet limit, but you couldn't have any dogs over 15 pounds. My collie is 80 pounds for reference. So that's when I decided to stop looking. But I mean, that's a great example of like some issues in the real estate. Like I, as the client, had to do the digging to find out that this house was not going to work for me. But
Yeah.
those were the days that people were sight unseen making offers and houses were moving. And I mean, there were ridiculous things like rumors of people offering to cover Netflix for a year for the buyers. And it was so
Yes.
much a buyer's market, that just crazy shit was happening. So, what does that
Yeah.
look like now in 2025? Because I mean, it has been 5 years, which feels like the blink of an eye, but the market's very different. So what are you seeing now compared to the start of your real estate career?
Yeah. Um, so I would argue that COVID was a very challenging market to work in as well, because we had to provide the expectation that you would have, this is the one house that came up in your price range. It's already got 4 offers on it. If you like it, you have to put in an offer right now. Great that you have money above and beyond asking, but this one went for triple that.
Mhm.
It was a really tough market, but I think some agents were able to excel in that market because they could come in, stick a sign in the yard, the house was going to sell. You didn't really have to work to support your clients as hard because everything moved so quickly. So now in 2025, really for the last 2.5 years, I think the biggest factor that has helped to slow down the market has been the interest rates. And I mean, interest rates we're probably not going to see those threes again ever. We're probably going to hang out and, I don't even want to quote because somebody will try to hold me to it, but
Right.
we're going to hang out at more historical normals in terms of interest rates. But what's been challenging is our insurance in Colorado has raised significantly. Some are even getting dropped from policies because of our rewritten fire zones. Um, Taxes have continued to go up. So right now we're still paying taxes based on some of the hotter years in the real estate market and then affordability of the housing market because we are continuing to increase altogether. So
Yeah.
all of that being said, that's market climate and then the things that we are working to adjust. I'm really having hard conversations with my buyers and sellers up front, sellers specifically, because it's not the market anymore where we can stick some unruly price on your house and it's going to sell in a weekend. And
Yeah.
so what's interesting is when I do a listing appointment, I have all this data to show them. And if I'm telling you like average days on market is 67, like I'm gonna market the heck out of that property. And I know I'm pretty good at that, but we're not immune to the data. So
Right.
that's telling us to attract a buyer to your price range, it could be 67 days. And I think some sellers are frustrated because showings as a whole are down across the table. So, it could take 20 showings to get an offer at different price points right now. So working to manage those expectations so that your clients are informed of what's coming next and then just keeping them abreast of every single step that you are doing to get their house sold. This is how it's been for years. It just kind of went out the door 5 years ago.
Yeah, it was insane. And I remember from the mortgage side, like a lot of LOs weren't really having to work to get their business because refinances were just being dropped. And my
Yes.
boss would say it was really boring. I mean, it was exciting because it was busy, but it was boring too because it was
Yes. Yeah.
And so it was this huge refinance boom too. Um, and as a buyer, I felt zero. It's actually why I gave up on buying in 21 because I didn't want to make this huge investment in a rush and feel like, oh, I saw that house once. I need to offer 20,000 over asking to have a chance, and that's low. So
Yeah.
it's been a wild ride for sure.
It it is. It's a wild ride. And I mean, real estate's cyclical. So it's all going to happen again. Like the market's going to pick up. It may not be to the 3% interest rate where they're basically giving you free interest on a house, but it's all going to happen again. History repeats itself. I guess the promising news on that is that if you're a buyer in this market right now, there are opportunities to request like seller paid rate buy downs, to get concessions again to help cover your closing costs and bring less to the table. And then obviously there's price decreases happening because the buyer pool is smaller. And so, sellers need to move that house the quicker they can do it. So there's a lot of opportunities for buyers if they're not scared to dip their toe in the market right now.
Yeah. Uh, my grandfather's house in North Carolina is on the market right now. So if anyone listening is near Flat Rock, North Carolina, it was a whole ordeal, but it got me thinking about the market because the house needs a fair amount of work. My grandfather designed the house, had it built, and we didn't realize like the roof needs to be done. There's some radon issues, but my dad decided to just list it. My grandfather went into assisted living. He's 97 years old, and it took a hurricane hitting Flat Rock for him to finally go in assisted living. So, but what's interesting, so we have it listed at like 525 right now, but as is. And I got flashbacks to 2020, 2021 when as is still sold like that. And you'll probably remember this. There was a property in Colorado Springs, which is where I live now, that was should have been condemned. Like there were squatters living in it. There was like yeah, there was like rotting meat in freezers in this house, the graffiti
Yes,
everywhere. And this house went viral because it was listed, I want to say it was over $700,000 that this house was listed
I
at.
think so too.
And it had to be
Yes,
flattened. Like it was literally just to buy the lot of land because the house was in such horrific shape that it needed to be bulldozed. So it's just
yes.
like no one wants to live in that market either. Like a $700,000 for a probably a quarter acre maybe of that. Like, so it'll
Yes.
be
Yeah,
interesting to see what happens with my grandfather's house. And but hearing you say that showings are down actually gives me hope that I need to give to my dad because showings have been really low and we weren't sure if it was because of the as is status or market in general. It's probably a combination of both. But you and I
I
could talk.
definitely,
Go ahead.
no, I was going to say it's probably a combination of both for sure. I mean, the buyer pool is just a little smaller because people have not gotten acquainted with the theory that interest rates are going to stay pretty similar to where they are right now.
Yeah,
So
yeah, people
once
want
I,
those 2 and 3%, but that's not a
yeah,
sustainable market either. Like it's just not. As much as we would love to, I mean, personal loans were great. I got a personal loan to pay off the credit card debt for my ex during that time, and that rate was so it was beautiful, but it's not sustainable for the economy.
yeah,
So
yeah,
let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk more about you, Karie, as an entrepreneur. What do you love about not only being specifically a real estate agent, but about being an entrepreneur, about working for yourself?
yeah. I love a lot of things that you do. And I think one of the biggest transitions that I've made was like getting really organized in my business, which was my love for systems, my love for daily routines, my love for a really solid calendar. Because I think as an entrepreneur, we are in this rare industry where you're employed today and maybe not employed tomorrow. Like if you
Uh,
don't do the work, you're unemployed tomorrow. Um, and so I think one of the things that I really love is like designing, literally designing this business that I run, and then trying to take some control of that, which is just being present for my family, being able to travel without answering my phone the whole time, and those sort of things. So, like business automations and stuff like that, while still delivering a huge amount of value to my clients, is something that I really love. And it's not the most impactful part of my business. Like obviously, helping them achieve their goals is like my favorite thing ever. But I really do love the life that we get to design through entrepreneurship.
And I think I would challenge you to and say that I think that is the most impactful because it's the most impactful in your immediate life. I mean, one of my favorite things about being an entrepreneur is sitting here in my office and having my cats run in and out, and then I can take my laptop out to the couch to work, and and my introverted heart gets to just be a crazy cat lady during the day if I want to be, even while I'm on meetings. But let's talk.
Yes.
You and I both love systems, and this is something we really bonded over. And I actually made a post last night about my calendar because anytime someone gets a glimpse of my calendar, they're like, "What is going on there?" And it looks overwhelming. I'm gonna actually, for those of you watching this, this is just an idea of my calendar. This is Google Calendar. Um, Karie, I imagine yours looks very, very similar to
I'm
mine.
gonna pull it up right now.
Um,
I know that it does. I mean,
I,
I've got it all color
yeah,
coded as well. And
beautiful.
um, yes.
How does that, I mean, I know because without my calendar, I don't know what I would do. I posted this last night, but the only meeting I've missed in the last 3 years was because I didn't put it on my somehow did not put it on my calendar. If it's on my calendar, it is going to get done. It
Yeah.
dates with friends, dates with my husband. I made a reservation for Casa Bonita in April, and that's on the calendar already. Like I've never been, so I'm
Yeah.
very excited. But how does your calendar allow you to be more present with your family? Because, for instance, you've got to do showings on the weekend. Like there's
I
no getting around that. So how do the systems you have in place allow you to create that balance between work and family?
Yes, I think that's an important question because I am a workaholic. And then also, like, I have a job where you're kind of always on call and working on the weekends. So I literally, I'm embarrassed to say this as we're talking about designing a life that you love, but I probably haven't taken a day off in at least 36 days. I mean, I'm in doing some type of work, but for me,
Yeah.
that's fulfilling. Um, so I get asked a lot, how I get so much done. And I do so much during the day because I want to be there to pick up my kids at 3 o'clock. So that is on my calendar.
Mm,
And I'm not afraid to say no to the appointment that comes in at like 1:45 because I have prioritized picking up my kids.
yeah.
So having I think the advice that I give so many people that ask me like, "Whoa, how are you getting so much done?" It's because like I have that calendar dialed in. And I would argue that I could probably look at a lot of entrepreneurs' calendars and tell them why they're not getting as much done because it's all about time management. And I feel like once we master those tasks, that's when we start to build freedom and success at the same time.
What tips would you give somebody? You probably saw the comments on my post. A lot of people were like, well, what do you use? Would you start? And I actually am thinking about offering a calendar workshop based on that post because there was great
I
feedback
did.
on it. Yeah.
I would love
So
that.
maybe that's something you and I could pair up on. But what are some general tips that you would give, let's specifically entrepreneurs when it comes to creating their calendar?
Well, I saw this on yours too, and it's been one of the most successful things for me, which is like a no meeting day. So Mondays for me is that catch up day where I have to sit behind the desk, update all my sellers, update all my buyers. And for me, that means a day that I might not have to do my hair and makeup to the nines because I'm going to be in the office, period, because I worked all weekend. And that has been really life changing for me. I think blocking that time to get things done also helps me feel successful because I'm a three. Um, so I think that is huge. The other biggest thing that has changed my business is like getting hyper focused about the things that need to get done in a week and creating like stacking like with like and then creating theme days to get that done. So like I just told you, Monday is like my office day, which means like hair in a ponytail after a workout is just fine. But Tuesday is my create content day. And that means like I know I have to get ready and be camera ready for the next day for social media. Um, and then like Wednesdays, I already have a networking meeting. So after that networking meeting, I try to stack other coffee dates or reach outs like with my database. So the cool thing about this is like the overwhelm is gone because I just log in and I'm like, oh yeah, it's Monday. Client updates. I don't have to be dressed and ready
Yeah.
tomorrow, you know?
Yeah, and I'll never, when my coach, Diana Davis, talked about blocking off, she does calibration Mondays. So that for her can mean going and working out or coffee or whatever. It doesn't necessarily mean the work day like it does. You and I both use Mondays for that. I try to not take any meetings on Mondays. I do some podcast interviews, me being on other people, stuff like that. But same, it tries to be my day that I can be in my PJs with, I threw mascara on to not scare people at school drop off, but that's about it. But
Yes.
for me, that was a terrifying idea because I mean, I was also working a full-time job plus my business, but the idea of telling my clients, no, I can't do Mondays, and I actually do Mondays and Fridays now. So I only take meetings on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And sometimes that
Good for
means it's a
you.
week or two before I can get someone in, but it works. And like I know that Fridays are typically when I have my appointments outside of the house. That's when I'll schedule doctor's appointments or to get my hair done or my nails done or whatever. And Mondays are my really solid work day. And I do want to say, so I have found, whereas for you, like Tuesday's content creation, and that works well for you, that was overwhelming for me. So I do want to say to anybody listening, you have to figure out what works for you. And so for me, instead of doing Tuesday's content creation, I might do, because I'm already going to be makeup and hair because I have meetings Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Maybe it's 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are my content
Yeah,
creation blocks. So
I
play with
love that.
the calendar, like play with
Yes.
it, see what works, like what brings energy into your world, what depletes your energy. And the other thing that was it's so silly, but was mind-boggling to me is I remember doing my calendar blocking, Diana telling us to put on our calendar first the things that were our personal life, like reading for 15 minutes, going to yoga, going to Pilates, whatever, picking up our kids. And I remember someone asking, but like, what if I miss it one day? Like, what if I don't read for 15 minutes at 12:30 in the afternoon? And Diana was like, so then you adjust your calendar to what actually works for you. And so many of us are like, oh shit, I missed that thing at 12 o'clock. Throw the whole calendar away. It didn't work. But no, you just adjust. And in seasons of your life, like I'm in a very different season than I was 3 years ago. I have a kid to pick up from school every day. Um, your calendar is a living, breathing thing that changes with you. So,
Yes.
calendar management is, yeah, top of the list.
So I really love like an all day. So for me, I'm crazy about metrics and tracking metrics. We all should be, by the way, for entrepreneurship. Like, how many conversations are you having? When does that mature and turn into when you get paid and those sort of things?
Yeah.
So I have a block on my calendar like 2 or 3 times a week where I click on that block. It's an all day event and it's got the attachment of my metrics tracking on it and then my goals that were set forth and am I on track to meet them or not? And if not, I mean, it's like one of those planning meetings where people are like, well, you got to check in with yourself. For me, that's like a 5 minute check in. I can do it in the car line at school if I want to, because everything is in one place. So I'm obsessed with calendar management, and you really speak my love language on that. So
Yeah, and then my other best friend is my Asana account, which is all my task-based stuff, and it's project management software. I used Trello for a really long time, but then I found I got really bad calendar fatigue last year, and I would just sit there in analysis paralysis, not knowing what to do. And that's when I changed the colors on my calendar, which I mentioned as well. I strongly suggest color coding, but if you find yourself getting calendar fatigue where it's just you're glazing over things, you're not getting things done, change up the colors on your calendar. It will literally trigger your brain to start paying attention again. And at the same time, I found that I was just ignoring my Trello. I was like, ah, yeah, whatever. So I switched to Asana and my life is on there now. Like recurring tasks. Like if I have a client that social media posts Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, then it gives me an alert on those days. That's another training I should probably do is an Asana training. So maybe that'll come, but we'll see.
I also love Asana and made a similar transition as you. I started with Trello and then I moved to Asana and I find it far more robust for building out different projects in your business. And I also think it's a really good place to like stack routines. So maybe you don't need, maybe you just need a block on your calendar for the time that you're going to do a routine, but why not have like a documented routine of the things that are moving the needle in your business and actually making you money, but get put on the back burner. Reference your Trello like theme days or routines and it's just a really powerful software. I also love it. I love the mobile app that I can just check it on my phone and know that I'm done for the day. And I think that's a key too, is like I'm one of those people that I achieve that task and I check it off and now I'm on to the next big thing.
Hmm.
But I'm learning to celebrate that success and that means like maybe the afternoon I don't have to be working so hard on the next best thing. So
Yeah, something that's been on my mind a lot lately is the fact that if I was working a traditional 9 to 5, I would not be expected to get as much done as I often expect of myself. And giving
I
myself grace that if things roll over to the next day, obviously client deadlines are always the first priority, but it's
absolutely.
okay for things to roll over. And my friend Yvette and I talked, she was on the podcast a little while ago. She and I talked about it. Like, if we were in a 9 to 5, they wouldn't give us a checklist of 30 things to get done that day. It might be two or
Oh,
three things to get done. And I think as entrepreneurs,
yes,
we want to get it all done right now. And we need to give ourselves a little bit more grace of that we're still human beings and the to-do list is going to be there no matter what. I like when I see the overdue tasks in Asana, occasionally I'll be like, oh crap, I'm behind. But mostly it's stuff that can float. It's not client deadlines. It's nothing that's costing me money. It's just things I wanted to
yes.
get done that are now floating. All right.
Yeah,
You and I could
love
we
it.
could do a systems workshop. That is what I'm getting from this is we need to offer a systems workshop. But
Yes.
Karie, where does your fire come from? What keeps you going as an entrepreneur, as a mom, as a pet mom? Because I know you've got a herd of dogs, like I've got a herd of cats. What is
I
the fire
do.
that keeps you going?
Gosh, I don't know. I am inspired by trying to build this life that's bigger than myself.
Mm.
And that really means like maybe building a legacy that my kids could step into someday. I've had some like pretty serious health challenges that popped up since 2020, and they're scary, like scary. Everything's fine, but I have really been through some stuff. And the flip side of that is it kind of makes you take a minute to say, like, wow, focus on what really matters. Like, because so much of it doesn't. We get so caught up in like stress and we lose our joy. Um, so that really fuels my fire. I mean, I get so satisfied when I help a first time home buyer that's like, Karie, thank you. Like, we didn't think buying a house right now is possible. And I'm like, it is. And I helped them achieve those goals, but then also like I'm doing more than I ever thought I was capable of doing. And it's so rewarding to me. So
Mm. That's beautiful.
I hope
I
that's
love it. Yeah, I mean, s- Melissa Snow's episode was live literally today as we're recording this, and she said something like you're doing a disservice to the people out there that need you and don't even know they need you if you're not putting yourself out there to get to know them. Like she said it much more eloquently than I did, but like we have the chance to make a huge difference in people's lives. I don't care what you're doing as an entrepreneur for a small business, there's a difference you are making in people's lives and people need to know you. And that's really what it comes down to. Mm.
Absolutely. I think it's so powerful, and it's so easy to get caught up in this like hustle and bustle, and so really trying to create that balance so that you're a pillar of joy and peace for your family. They're not just getting this stressed out version of you. There's a lot to work on in the entrepreneur space that is both rewarding and humbling at the same time.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. All right, Karie, you and I should definitely talk about a systems workshop. So those of you listening or
I
watching, stay tuned. Um, you have your Shatter Summit coming up, right? With
Yes, yes.
yeah. So do you want to talk about that for because this episode will be live next Monday night, so next Tuesday. So when is the
Okay.
cutoff for tickets for that?
I believe the cutoff is this week.
Okay.
Um,
But do you want
I
to talk
should have the
about
actual.
that's okay. Do you want to talk about that event and what you guys are doing? And then because I assume it's probably gonna happen again. So what is the
Yeah.
Shatter Summit thing?
So the Shatter Summit is a workshop for female entrepreneurs, and there it's going to be just a beautiful day. So something that I'm really proud of with this is that I've like flown to different business workshops for a lot of money and a lot of time and effort to get there and travel and make sure my family's taken care of back here. And this one is obviously local to the Tri Lakes area. But you know, anybody could come to it. It's a beautiful day, strategically planned with a catering event, and you're getting a really luxurious swag bag. And there's sales training with Jessica Thompson. She is absolutely amazing and a business coach. And no matter where you are in sales, it's overcoming objections and feeling confident. There's mindset training with Shalisa, who is just an inspiring soul, about believing in yourself and what we're capable of. I am teaching on systems and strategy for your business. A lot of what we talked about here, and just not having shiny object syndrome. And then Jen is teaching on social media strategy and finding your ideal client. So it's a really robust day of networking with other female entrepreneurs. There will be vendors there that kind of build your vendor list and your vendor database. So um, yes, it is a huge event. We can try to link it up so that anybody interested can still take a peek. And yeah, it should be really awesome. Very exciting. It's exciting to come together with other entrepreneurs and like you kind of have a business in a box and a workbook to take away from this event to go implement in your business immediately.
Beautiful. And I love that you guys are offering it right in the Tri Lakes community, which is amazing.
Yeah, we think that's really special too.
Yeah. All right, Karie, how can people get a hold of you? Other real estate agents that want to learn from you or people that are looking to
Yeah.
buy or sell their homes in the area. What is the best way for them to find you?
Let's see. I am on everything as Colorado Springs lifestyle. I'm on LinkedIn. I have a YouTube channel about Colorado Springs, moving to the area. I'm really kind of on every social platform, but just email me. I absolutely believe in collaboration over competition, and I think we're all better together. And I wish more would adopt that mindset.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's enough business for everyone and no matter the industry,
Yeah.
and we're all stronger when we can learn from each other. Jen Peterson and I just she's the one doing the social media strategy with you guys. She and I just became friends late 2024. We've already done a workshop together and a lot of people would say we offer a lot of the same. But I've already learned from her, she's learned from me. Like if anything, if you're listening to this, like community is everything and your co-entrepreneurs, and I'll speak specifically to women. We're not in competition with each other. Everybody does better when the individuals do better. It's just that simple. So,
Yeah. And I think it elevates whatever industry you're in as well. Like, I mean, you can learn from anybody in your industry, and it brings back a new level of professionalism and everything else. So
yeah,
you're
absolutely.
crushing it. It's fun to watch your journey and watch you do all the things, my friend. You're amazing.
Thank you. It's been so lovely to see you. We will get a coffee date on the schedule and maybe a systems
Yes.
workshop before too
Yeah.
terribly long. Maybe after the Shatter Summit, we'll put that together. Well, thank you
Yes.
so much for taking time today. I really appreciate it. And for all of you listening, if you want to find out more about what I do as a creative strategist, you can find me on Instagram at LifeJensWay, or my email is jen@jensway.com, or my website is jenswayva.com. Two N's on Jen always. Karie, thank you, thank you. I so appreciate you, and it was lovely to reconnect.
Yeah.
And for everyone
For
listening,
having
yes, absolutely. For everyone listening, thank you so much. And I'll talk to you next time on Your Next Business Bestie.